What is up, Internet? I am Taylor, and this is my somewhat less cranky than normal, maybe, free comic book day reviews. I'm not as cranky because I didn't have to pay for any of these, so whatever. Let's get into it. I'm not doing these best to worst or worst to best. I'm just doing, well, the order of this stack because I'm too lazy to try and figure it out. I'm just going to give my general impressions of what I thought of each of these issues. I'm not going to be crazy critical. I'm just going to say whether or not I think they're worth picking up if you can find them for free. So there's that. Valiant 2022. I'd say skip this one, honestly. There's some great art in here. I really enjoyed the art on the Bloodshot, which is the art is by John Davis Hunt. And I actually like the Armorines, War Marines, Armorclads, whatever the hell they're called in the Valiant Universe. Armorclads. The art by Manuel Garcia with inks by Raul Fernandez. But there's not much in the way of story, and the lettering on these is kind of atrocious. They have like really cheesy, you can tell it's digital lettering, and you can tell they added like weird digital effects to some of it in the word balloons. I really kind of hated it. My favorite part of this entire book is a one-page preview ad for Exo Manowar. But on the whole, there's not much in here. It's all like, oh, to be continued in the next issue. You're not really missing much in the way of story. If you're not familiar with the Valiant Universe, this really isn't going to help matters. I think of them all, I think the Ninjak thing at the end is probably the worst of the bunch, and possibly the most interesting is the Archer and Armstrong, because you get the fact that Archer or Armstrong, whichever the immortal one, isn't so immortal. He's dying. Spoilers, and that's at least an interesting premise. But the rest of this, nah, there's not much in here. So if you missed out on this, no big deal. Okay, this one these two I picked up for my niece and nephews. They beat the shit out of comics, and they'll probably beat the hell out of these two. This is aimed at a very young audience, which is probably about my nephew Cole's age. He's turning 6. Yeah, turning 6 this month. And it reminds me a lot of that annoying-ass cartoon where there's 3 kids dressed like dinosaurs, and they all learn valuable lessons about friendship and teamwork every single episode. It's awful to watch, and this is kind of awful to read. It's got very kid-oriented art, which is clean and great for the kids. You're not going to probably get a whole lot out of this, but you get the new Doc Ock, you get Miles Morales. It's an intro to the Marvel characters done in the very young kid style, and there's some fun stuff for the kids to do, but none of this is aimed at any kind of adult kind of stuff, and you're not going to miss it. But if you have someone probably in the 5 to 7 year old range, they'd probably dig this. So definitely aimed at kids. This one is, I think, a preview for the movie coming out on Crypto, but it's not really funny. The humor falls flat in this, and while it is definitely aimed at kids, there's words like non de plume in here, which I don't know if half the grown-ups know what the hell that one means. Secret identity. But yeah, it's all right. It introduces each of the animals in here, each of the pets, and there's a little bit of fun stuff in here, where some of the pets don't have superhero names, but it doesn't really come across as very funny. There's the more interesting part is the backup story with Primer, which I've not heard of. It's a graphic novel preview, and DC does some of this. I don't know if this character has ever been introduced before. It's like a spray paint oriented hero, with superhero powered spray paint. I don't know. It's not great, but it's at least a new introduction and a kind of a fun twist on a hero. The book itself, again, if it's aimed at kids, it's okay. They might get more of looking at it out of reading it, because the language is not necessarily kid oriented. So I don't know. It's all right. This one. All right. SpiderMan and Venom Free Comic Book Day 2022. The first story is written by Zeb Wells, and it's kind of awful. It's about a living mailbox that attacks things. And there's a reveal at the end that the mailbox isn't behind it all. Shocker. And whatever. It's Zeb Wells. It's John Romita Jr. Oh, yeah. It is John Romita Jr. The art on it's actually okay. It doesn't tie into anything that happened in ASM #1, really, as far as the mood that was set up there. It does have a little bit to do with what's going on with the other characters in there. So I don't think you're going to miss anything if you miss this, which is, I guess, the point of Free Comic Book Day. Is just trying to hook new readers in. I wouldn't get hooked in if I were reading this ASM story. It's not very good. It's weirdly quippy, but even for Spider-Man, and it's not, I don't know, I don't think Zeb has a handle on the Spider-Man quips very well, as far as that goes. like the Crips while fighting. Like, it just doesn't seem to be fantastic. The backup story is Rom V and Al Ewing, and it's the Venom backup, which ties together Eddie as the King in Black, kind of fighting in the end of the universe, whatever the hell he's fighting in, some giant machine. And then there's Dylan. There might actually be a first appearance in here. Spoilers, so like pick that up if you want it. I don't know the. Yeah, I'm not sure. I think they're actually. I think that probably is a first appearance, at least if I'm caught up. Unless it's one of those weird timing issues where like first appearance in the Free Comic Book Day was supposed to be in a first somewhere else. You know, that happens every goddamn year with Marvel. So that might be the case here. I really have not liked the Venom that Al and Ram were doing, and I don't necessarily love this, but I do like this better than any of the issues of the comic I've read. And there's a cool splash page in here, at least, by Brian Hitch, whose art I really don't think fits Venom all that well. But, you know, it's not awful. All right, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. This is the same story in here told twice, and I have not ever read the first issue of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but I do think it's part of it's reprinted here in the back, and that's kind of interesting. You get the great art by Eastman and Laird, whichever one's doing the art. I know. The duotones, the halftones. You see like what kind of like made this comic tick back in the day, and why it stood out. It's still pretty phenomenal as far as that goes. Like fight choreography and the black and white art is gorgeous, and it's not a horrible reprint. It's on the glossy paper, so it kind of pops in that way. The front story doesn't add a whole lot to it other than like it's told from a little bit different tone and it's setting up a book. The art's not anywhere near as good. It's not bad. It just doesn't have that nuance that Eastman Laird brought to it. It's definitely more graphic and dark and straightforward. And the story itself, I think that's actually a little more interesting when it's told in the back half of the book, which is not surprising either. It's okay. It's not awful. I mean, if you're a Turtles fan, pick it up because it leads to something. It's a preview for the next thing. So, yeah. Equilibrium, this is probably the worst paper of the bunch, and it's got, like, I think it's old First Comics heroes, although it's now Comic House. It's a timey-wimey time travel story. It's all complete. I'm not sure if it's a reprint. It's a little bit confusing if you've never dealt with any of these characters before. The art's not bad. I mean, I kind of dig that pinup and that spread. The story itself is all right. It's on like an uncoated, it's on an uncoated stock, and it's very flimsy. But yeah, these characters, like they look familiar to me. They're not Charlton, but I think they're first. I'm not owned property, or they were. And there's if you're not familiar with that universe, you're probably going to be a bit lost. I was a little bit lost, and I at least recognized Captain Canuck, the Canadian. And there's like a Speed people. I mean, there's all these heroes in here that like I just don't know, and I don't care about. And the story by Keith Champagne, it's all right, and the art by Scott Bryan Woods, not bad. I mean, it's a one and done. If you're looking for just something to read, it's okay. Will this take off and turn into anything? Probably not, but whatever. All right, next, we have the best of 2000 AD. This is all, I think these are all reprints from the old 2000 AD. The best story of the bunch is probably the first story, which is the Judge Dredd Hard Talk by, it's Al Ewing, so that might be a new one. Al Ewing and Vivi Glass. The rest of these I think are old. Yeah, there's artist Kevin O'Neill, there's Pat Mills on the Terror Tube, John Wagner and Mike. I think most of these are older because you get an old Alan Davis that I remember seeing as a kid, and some of these others. The Al Ewing one is fine. It's a Judge Dredd story. It's a farce. It's like dealing with social media and the right wing talk shows and fascism and all that, and that's on brand for Judge Dredd. The people that don't understand that it's a satire, I'm a little concerned about. The rest of these, you can tell they've been reprinted and shrunk down a bit. They're kind of hard to read, and they've not been necessarily recolored. You get that kind of garish coloring where they just went from newsprint to like the uncoated newsprint stock to this. Like it happens in a lot of the reprints on everything where it's just kind of everything becomes oversaturated and bright for the rest of the book. Not awful. If you like the underground comics and stuff, you'll probably dig this, but it is hard to read because it's shrunk a bit. It's sort of, if you read Animal Farm or Animal, whatever that one is, the new one that's out, it's the same idea. It's like the European comics are a bit bigger. And so when you shrink them down for these U.S. audiences, it gets difficult. Like, I had to like squint and kind of get in there and be like, what is that saying? especially when the type's reversed out, so you get the the white type on the black background and there's some bleeding going on. But I mean, you get that underground feel that 2000 AD's always had. You get some of the violence and you get some of the sense of history. There's some gorgeous stuff in here, like which one is it? It is this, yeah, this story arc here. Future Shocks, Journey to the End of the World. I can't remember the artist, but I mean, there's some great stuff in here, and I think it would be better served being printed larger. So if you get a chance to hunt down the original 2000 AD stuff or whatever, do that. I think these are all going to be continued in a best of. I'm hoping when they print the best of, it'll be bigger because it really needs it. All right, Marvel Voices. This is fine. This is like Marvel Voices. You're not going to get a whole lot out of this. I mean, there's nothing groundbreaking in here. You get a Moon Girl, yeah, Moon Girl, Double Dinosaur, Moon Girl story. That's all right. It's timey-wimey. It's about the future. It's the motivations become by being a superhero and what it all means. It's okay. And then the rest of these are just kind of little snippet and nuggets of it's all about inclusivity and diversity, which is great. And like the Veregi art is fantastic on this Watcher story, but it's not much of a story. It's just a description of heroes. And then the Miles Morales art is really pretty fantastic as well. Not much to it. Like, even for short stories, there's just not much to a lot of these. They're very... And then I kind of hated the Alyssa Wong Wave story. Even though it had art by Will Protasio, who, like, yeah... Always, I loved his X-Men stuff back in the day. I think he was one of the stronger Image guys. I liked him better than Jubilee or McFarlane. Just personal taste. And I think it's still pretty strong. Not quite as great as, honestly, when he was doing I think he was more rushed and a little bit more raw back on the X-Men, and I dug that better. And then you get just kind of a history of diversity and LGBTQ relationships in the Marvel Universe, where I think it's a little bit of their like, yeah, we're doing all this, and they're patting themselves on the back. They could do more, and they could make it so it feels less shoehorned and more natural in some cases. There's some characters that are great, there's some that are not. Your mileage may vary. I'm a straight white cis man, so like my opinion really doesn't matter on that. But it's just not much of a story, and there's really not much of a story in here. Dark Crisis, yeah, whatever. This is setting up the Dark Crisis, kind of. The first story by Josh Williamson kind of explains there's no more Justice League. And it appears like they've been gone for a while in this, at least in this version of the story. Gorgeous art in here by Jim Chung. Josh, there's just not a ton of story here. And then they're setting up the Dark Crisis event. So basically, all of this is just basically saying, no more Justice League. And they say it in a bunch of different ways. And then they talk about the whatever the multiple crisis. DC needs to rename their shit. I'm so goddamn sick of the word crisis. Everything's a crisis with DC. Why can't it be a calamity or a disaster or a mildly bad time that might end the world? It's always a crisis. But yeah, that's not bad. Again, it's a setup. Is their first appearance in here? I don't know. Is it a key issue? Probably not. I mean, whatever. Doesn't matter. If you're a big Crisis fan, you probably already have all this. So your mileage may vary. All right. Same here. Justice. This is Marvel's version of that. Judgment Day. This is Avengers versus Eternals versus X-Men, and this kind of explains why the Eternals are going to be going to war with everybody in the X-Men. Hint, it's because their mutants are a deviation, and Eternals fight deviants. Deviations. I don't know. It's not the worst setup for a Marvel event. We'll see how it goes. The art is pretty cool. Who's the art by? There's different arts and different stories. I can't be bothered to look it up. But the first arc has Odin and explaining things and explainy bits. That's probably the strongest one of the bunch in here, I think. Then the Judgment Day, yeah. I think there actually probably is a first appearance in here in one of these middle stories, so grab it if you want. The Gary Duggan stuff doesn't do much for me. His writing never really does. And then, yeah, it's just kind of like all the rest of this shit, it's just a setup and a tease, which is what I guess you want out of a free comic book day comic for the most part. You just want enough intrigue that you'll spend the money on the rest of this stuff. So if you're ready gonna buy the Avengers versus everybody versus X-Men versus Infernal, you'll probably get it. You'll probably don't need this book to tell you that. All right. The next, well, let's go this one. I didn't like this one either. Trezzy, the Last Scene After Midnight with the exclusive preview with the art of Trezzy. It's an okay fantasy theme, kind of murder-ish mystery horror. The art's black and white, and it's solid but not exciting. And the story is also, that's about how I feel about the story. It gets pretty muddy in the middle where I'm kind of like, what in the hell is going on? It all sort of becomes clear at the end, and it's got a little bit of a twist that I was like, oh, that's clever, except for it's not. It's like kind of the tropey ending of like, hero kind of loses but kind of gets their revenge at the end. Or the bad guy, the bad anti-hero. We'll put it that way. And then there's a sort of silent preview at the end for the next thing. Not my jam, not my bag. Didn't really care for it. One of the, it didn't hook me, so it didn't do its job, I guess. But, all right. Andrea Moody has been damn busy. He's the artist in a lot of these. He did the first story in this bunny mask, and he did the art in this entire Nottingham special, which is a Christmas themed one, which is coming out in the summer. A little bit weird. We'll get into that in a second. But the bunny mask, oh man, it's Paul Tobin on the writing on all these, which is great because the bunny mask is his creation, and it's a baffling creation. And you get at least a little more insight as to what's going on. If you've not read Bunny Mask, you're going to be lost. If you have read Bunny Mask, you're still lost because Bunny Mask is just one of those comics where none of this shit makes a whole lot of sense yet. I think it's going to get there, and this actually does give some, at least a little bit more sense as to what Bunny Mask might be. And the stories are pretty solid for that. I love Andre Moody's art, and the first story about a cat, ostensibly, is great. It's creepy. It's got the mood of Bunny Mask down, and yeah, I'm all for it. And then the second thing is another Bunny Mask related story with the Roberta Ingranata, sorry. Art is not quite as dynamic or solid as Moody's, but not bad. And then it's a different point of view on the story, and it's more of it feels more like an almost Ice Cream Man issue than Bunny Mask, but Bunny Mask is in there, and it does have an ending, and it's sort of, I don't know, it doesn't really, none of these really explain Bunny Mask, but if you're liking Bunny Mask, you'll like this. If not, and you want some weird-ass horror you're not going to really understand, you could do worse than this. All right, Nottingham. This is, like I said, it's a Christmas-themed issue. Nottingham is set in the world of Robin Hood back in the day, but it's more told from the politics and violence, and there's not necessarily good people in this. It's written by David Kazan and art by Andre Moody, and lettering by Justin Birch, YouTube's own Justin Birch. Awesome. Justin, come on my channel. Let's do an unboxing match. The lettering's solid. Just to kiss a little ass. No, honestly, here's the thing. I did not notice the lettering, which means it was good. It did its job. Nothing about it stood out and bugged me. So it's solidly invisible lettering. And the story I actually liked better than I have liked some of the other stuff. I've only really read Nottingham issue 1. While I thought it was okay, it didn't grab me enough to keep reading. This actually might drag me back into it, and I might try and pick up the trade of the first volume and then kind of catch back up, because I think they're only 7 or 8 issues into it, and it's an intriguing universe. It's a nice twist on the tale, because Robin Hood's not necessarily a good guy. Sheriff of Nottingham's not necessarily that bad. It's got some politics. It's got people trying to make their way in the world, and lots of violence and anger, and damn the man, but the man's damning everybody. The story here is about a kind of no-win situation for the sheriff. I believe it's the sheriff of Nottingham, and yeah, I like this one more than I liked issue number 1. And it's also as far as the quality goes, this is a solid quality book from Mad Cave. It is printed on nice thick paper. It is the colors pop and are gorgeous, and Andre Moody on colors. Honestly, Andre Moody must be the fastest goddamn painter out there, because he just keeps knocking these things out of the park, and his art, you're never going to be lost. You know what's going on story wise. It's not going to be a full page spread, but as far as story and telling a tale through watercolor, unless this is all digital, but it might be. But either way, it is fantastic as far as that goes. There's another backup tale, which I think is also drawn by Andre Moody. That's okay. But the main thing of Nottingham, pretty solid. All right, and then my favorite of the bunch as far as setting a mood and setting something up goes. And like, I'm gonna admit I'm biased because I like these creators a whole lot. It's the Boneyard Mythos Prelude. I don't love the title, but it's Jeff Lemire on the writing and Andrea Sorrentino on the art, and those are the two that did the Gideon Falls, and they're teaming back up. You get the moody, like dark color palette. You get like a vacation story. You get the story of like a estranged husband and wife trying to figure things out, where it seems like the husband's probably cheated on her. You get a setup for like a weird horror possible thing. I don't want to spoil a whole lot, but like if you like their other stuff and you want to see Jeff Lemire tackle some like horror, yeah, pick this up. It's good. I will be getting it, and also at the end, apparently they're working on an entire like sort of horror universe. The Boneyard Mythos is going to be the framework, I guess, and then there's Testament and 10,000 Black Feathers and the Passageway, and it's all going to be Lemire and Sorrentino. I can't wait because I love their stuff. I think they work very well together. I think Lemire writes to Sorrentino's strengths. They also were Primordial was another one that they did together, which I really liked. I think this has the potential to be stronger than Primordial, and I don't necessarily always love horror when it's just purely gore, but this has like some of Sorrentino's visual trickery, and like Lemire plays to that when he's writing, and it's also just got this moody, dark quality, which I dig, and it's more of like a creepy, moody horror than it is a straight gore horror, if that makes sense. I have to try and really enunciate the word horror. And there's a little bit of nudity in here, but, you know, whatever. It's a horror book. I'll deal with it. And, yeah. I am looking forward to reading the rest of this. I think I cannot wait for this to come out. That's the most exciting one. So all of it, honestly, not a bad, on the whole, free comic book day. Did I love everything? No. Did some of it not hit the mark for me? Yeah, of course not. Some of it not aimed at me? Sure. Do I really give a shit about the Marvel and DC stuff? Not really. But some of the indie stuff that came out was pretty solid. And so if you get a chance and your LCS still has some of these lying around, you know, pick up these three at least. And go buy something from them too, because these cost the LCS's money. I know they're free for the consumer, but they're not really necessarily free for, you know, the shops. And thank you to the three shops I hit up today, which is Powerhouse Comics in Appleton, Wisconsin, Chimera Games in Appleton, and then Red Hammer Games in Appleton. So thank you to all three of you. I bought something for everybody. I picked up books from all of you. You've all been great. Happy, you know, LCS day. Local comic shop day is a different day. Happy free comic book day. Live long and prosper, whatever. Don't be a dick, even when you get free shit. Or especially when you get free shit. It's free shit. Don't be a dick. All right. See ya.